Hello, and welcome to 5 to 1, a minute-to-minute podcast review of Zack Snyder's director's cut of Justice League. I'm Harry Slack, and with me as always is my longtime associate, Ben Smolin. Ben, how are you today?
Doing well, Harry. Excited to let the people know what we've been up to.
Absolutely. In this episode, Ben and I thought it would be a good time to tell you, our new listeners, what this podcast is all about. I'm a huge fan of the film Sucker Punch and have a passing familiarity with comic books. Ben has seen the films Force Majeure and Major League, so we decided to combine our skills to put together an in-depth review of Zack Snyder's director's cut of Justice League. In this podcast, Ben and I will watch 1 minute of the Mr. Snyder cut of Justice League, which is not the film's true title, but rather a lighthearted moniker that Ben and I use to save some time here and there. And then we will each have 2.5 minutes to relay our thoughts and impressions to you, the listener. So as not to waste anyone's time, a resource we all have precious little of, we will be sticking to the 2.5 minute mark very strictly, so please excuse us if we interrupt each other. Beyond the time limits, the reviewers may respond to the film in whatever way seems most appropriate given the minute they have just seen. Since this is just an introduction to our show, we have not watched a minute today, and so we'll not be responding to the film. Instead, Ben and I will each have 2.5 minutes to tell you, the listener, things that we think you should know in order to get the most out of this podcast. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Ben for 2.5 minutes. Ben, what do you think listeners of this show need to know in order to get the fullest experience possible out of it?
You know, that's a good question, Harry. I think mostly it's just go in with an open mind and be ready to watch a movie a minute at a time. And, you know, like I feel like, you know, a lot of people when they go at art, which this I'm sure will be, high art, is that they look at it so big picture of like, what's the authorial intent and like what are the characters and their arcs. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes it's just really good, especially when you're dealing with, you know, somebody like Mr. Snyder to like really get down in the minutia and go a minute at a time and like let it wash over you like a drip, you know, like, and I think like, you know, my experience, I've barely seen any DC movies. I know you haven't seen any DC movies.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, but this is the one, you know, let's go straight to the you know, the grand poobah and just be like, let's go. And so my advice to people, watch along with us, have fun, you know. And a real important piece of housekeeping is that there's an ad in front of the film. So if you're gonna watch along with us, you time it. The minute 1:00:00, that begins exactly when the note about the aspect ratio comes in. So that's where you want to start along with us. That's like a very crucial note for if you're watching with us.
That is essential.
Yeah. And then, you know, I'm just curious, you know, to see how the movie is, you know. Like, I have expectations, and let's just see. I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to give any spoilers, but let's see if I'm right or wrong. You know what I mean? And I hope you all come in with the expectations as well. And, you know, join us for this absolutely insane 200 and what is it? 40-day ride. 242-day ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, how much time do I have left?
You have 30 seconds left. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've seen a lot of the Marvel films, and, you know, like the way that I think of Marvel movies is that I think Marvel movies are like great plane movies where you can just like turn your brain off and watch them for like 2.5 hours and like be totally entertained. Yeah. And, you know, in DC, you know, it's gotten a bad rap. And so I'm going to see like, is it deserved? Is DC that bad? You know, kind of thing. And like, how active is it going to be?
Ben, that's your time. I'm going to cut you off there. Great, thanks, Ben. That is all. I agree with all of that. And just we'll add some different elements here.
Yeah, please, go.
It's my dream and my hope and my sort of North Star for this project is I would like and I've wanted this for a long time, and so thank you all for giving me the opportunity to have this happen. Thank you, Ben, and thank you, the listeners, for supporting me in this. I just want a 7-minute podcast. And so for me, one of the things I really want the listeners to understand about this is that we are as much as Ben and I would love to have 5 minutes each to talk about each minute that we watch, that's just not the world in which we live. And so we're each going to have 2.5 minutes of our own time to respond to this film. And you know, beyond that, I don't want to set limits to where our minds can go. I think that's the beauty of art, is that it creates, a good piece of art engenders new creation and allows the mind to sort of go and create more beautiful things in this ever-expanding universe of ours. And so with that said, we are going to be very strict about the 2.5 minutes. Now, because we need 1.5 minutes of introduction and 30 seconds of outro, I can give sort of a plus or minus of like 2 to 4 seconds for us. But ultimately, my North Star and the thing I'm most I care most about is that every episode come in at 7 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have my word that I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure, first, that every episode's 7 minutes, and then second, that we get, there's an equitable distribution of time. I think if we've learned anything from, we're in the middle of a pandemic, we're close to the end, but not quite there yet. And I think we've all learned about the value of time and how important it is to just treat it with the preciousness with which it is required, which we must. And that's why we're taking the time to review every minute, because people spent years of their lives and countless dollars creating this movie. And so it seems important that we respect that time investment. And
Harry,
so with that, we are going to be...
I'm going to have to stop you right
Okay,
there.
great. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoy this podcast, please take the time to subscribe, rate, review, or otherwise support this project. If you're looking for a way to enhance the podcast experience, feel free to watch along with us on your own. Just be sure to avoid spoilers by not skipping ahead. You can join us next time for our first episode. We'll be reviewing minute 1 of 242 of Zack Snyder's director's cut of the Justice League, or as we sometimes call it, the Mr. Snyder cut of Justice League. Goodbye.